Ah, man, that's funny. That I made an error because I made a change for Windows and didn't test it with Mac. I split some of the code between Mac and Windows in some cases. Windows has better interpolation, rendering frames between frames with fixed delta time, whereas the MacBook doesn't require that. Prompt, then blue sky. Okay, next. I have to fix this bug later. I'm not doing it now. So that means it's an error every time the song ends. Because there's a specific function, blah blah blah, rendering text, creating a texture of the screen, frames, delta time, velocity. What else do you want to know? Python, Pygame, PyGuitar Pro, private programming project. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna look at this error. And I'm not gonna share the source code. The source code is private. Why is this data mismatch? Oh, wait. Excuse me. I have a theory. Let's look. Different functions, different operating system, same functionality. Is it because different layers of texture, RGB versus RGBA, 3 layers versus 4 layers? Is the what's it called? Alpha blend? Is the alpha blend necessary? I don't use it, so no, not necessary. But I forgot the details. There's a Mac texture and there's a Windows texture, and both are different. I think I have the Mac at. What is it? Texture equals. Let's see. Oh, right there. Oh, huh, really? I thought it was. I guess not. Interesting. Data size mismatch. Texture. Oh. Wait. What? Because when the song is stopped, it calls something else. It's only when the song stopped. It's. Oh, wait. Is it? No. This is what programming is like, basically, right? There's a bug that I introduced. Self-screen. Self-screen. Oh, I know what I did. I think. I removed the alpha on one channel, on one part. And well, I'm gonna have to do this later. There's a difference between playtime and program time. And they're two very different thoughts. So give me a second. There's a bug, but I'm not gonna fix it right now. Just got the source code open, I gotta close it. Because I have different rendering processes for Windows and Mac, and then I'm actually using some. I tried to separate the functionality between the two. But, because when you see the screen here, let me plug it back in. There's, the red, the colors, the pixels, RGBA, RGB, red, green, blue, the texture or color format for what you're seeing on the screen. Well, I'm using Python, obviously. I'm using Pygame. I'm using PyGuitar Pro. But anyways, the Pygame, I'm using OpenGL. And mixing OpenGL with... I'm mixing OpenGL with the SDL2 rectangle from Pygame format. I'm not using the SDL2 format. It's it's a lot going on. And one of the areas, there's a bug that I introduced on the Mac version of this program, because on the Windows version of the program, I got rid of the alpha layer. So you have red, green, blue, alpha. Alpha is like a transparency layer. Different when you layer things on the screen, does it overwrite it? Or does it just show on top of it? Or something like that. It turns out I'm not using that and I think it's extra layer calculation, so I removed that for Windows. It's so weird how Windows has worse performance than Mac. It makes no sense. Different operating systems, sure, but hardware differences, it's more like software difference. My Windows is far better than the Mac in hardware. So yeah, two different versions of this program. I think I fixed one bug just recently in this version, in the most recent update, most recent branch from 11.8.23 is when I did I changed the way the song ends. I changed it. So before I had like every frame or every update loop, I would check, all right, is the song over? Well, how long is the song? When do we want to define the song being over? And that, I think, because I'm caching everything before the game loop. I create everything to render before the game loop starts. I cache it, and then one of those things I cache is a note log. Every note, whether I hit or miss the note, the timing of the note, the strings of the notes, the frets of the note, the frequency of the note, and everything is cached. And one thing I had in the bug in the last version is where I was doing a trick. I'm doing all these tricks to increase performance from Windows. And during the caching of it, so every note has a certain start time and end time in the program. And the way I just changed the logic for the way the song to end. Instead of checking every frame, looking at the current song time, analyzing if it should end, it instead just creates a unique version of a note that is pretty much the duplicate of, right now of the same content, except it has, and by duplicate I mean like when programming inheritance. So I'm making a unique class inheriting the other note functions. You know, the notes as in the rectangles that are drawing on the screen, those are the notes defined by the strings are the colors, red, green, blue, whatever, all those. And then the frets defined by the X position of, you know, 0 fret here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the notes fall in the proper X position. They all start at the same Y at the very top, and they descend downwards below the screen across 2 seconds by a velocity of delta time. That's one thing I've also changed recently is the finish line position. You notice in this version it's much lower. Before it was like right here. So I lowered the finish line position right here. You wouldn't believe this, but the velocity speed from the go all the way down, from the y vector of 10 all the way down to whatever this is, I increased it to some strange number. That's another topic, is how Pygame renders a screen in XY coordinates versus how OpenGL renders a screen. These same exact coordinates in Pygame are flipped 90 degrees. No, it's flipped and rotated 90 degrees. So it's weird. Different formats. So I'm going to do different performance optimizations on Windows. One of them is like NumPy, surface array pixels to 3D, basically drawing or getting the OpenGL NumPy coordinates for everything drawn on the screen, having to flip that vertically and or whatever, and then having to do the rotating 90 degrees. Anyways, programming talk concluded. Programming is not shown on streams. That's private source code. So let's play some more. This tone, by the way, I'm using a Boss Noise Suppressor NS2. And dude, I never played the center pickup on this guitar, and I had it for like a year now, up until I just got this pedal. Did I say pickup? I meant I never played this pickup until I got that pedal because of the noise suppressor. These are single coil pickups, and they're hot. They're vintage inspired. They're not the noiseless like my other Telecaster. This is why I have two Telecasters. One has hot wired pickups. I consider them hot compared to the American Ultra Noiseless, which are nothing like this. Perhaps too soft is the other one, so this one's quite nice. Well, let's butcher some more. Hideaway, Freddie King. Not Albert King or BB King. Those will come later. That reminds me, I gotta get Bad Sign by Albert. I only have Bad Sign by with Stevie. I don't have the one just Albert. Or I have the Cream Bad Sign. I'm not in the mood to play those at the moment. I want to do Freddie King. And I'm going to do dynamic tempo based on my previous playthroughs. Let's see how it goes. This is why I do the note log. It logs my notes, like how much I hit or miss, to the best of my programming ability to have that functionality. Constantly in progress. And damn, hold on. Green screens are tough sometimes. Now I gotta layer it. This is a Universal Audio Apollo Twin X Duo. I only have so many resources available. Alright. See, that's why I didn't do that. One second. Need a better green screen, huh? Alright, anyways. Let's do this, butcherness. I wonder if it saves the JSON file before airing. And I do want to, you know what's weird though is like I was practicing just a second ago one version of that song section of the song that only happens once, the double stops between the third string and the first string, between the 12th fret, 7, 8, 2, 3, and 4th fret. With the two, see, this one's tricky because if you do this double stop, you know, double stops usually require a muting of one of the strings in between. In this case, the muting of the second string. And what I was doing is playing without I was practicing, because there's two different versions, two different ways to play it too. With a pick or without a pick. Without a pick, you have only the two strings, because you have the two fingers picking only the two strings, and not the third one, you don't have to mute it. The pick, you gotta mute it. So if you don't mute it, so if you play with the pick, then you gotta mute it with the left hand, right? And that changes the comfort ability of doing that chord, as in, if I play with the two fingers, that means I don't have to mute with my left hand, so I can just worry about doing my first finger and my middle finger. That's what I do anyway. Because if I do have to mute it, then I get my third finger in there to mute the second string. The thing is, it's so awkward to put pressure on 2 of 3 fingers in transitioning between frets. It just it's so weird to just put pressure on 2 or 3. That's why I feel more comfortable without the pick. But then the speed, it's like it requires the pick, because it feels like plucking with 2 fingers is slow. Unless, I don't know, it just, something forces me to go back to the pick, even though it's just not comfortable. So I really want to keep trying without the pick. But even then, transitioning from the pick to not a pick to a pick is speed. And shortly after that, there's barely little sustain time from the last two to move your fingers to get a pick and go to the whatever the rhythm is. And also the pickup position, at least on the noise gate settings perhaps, has the lows, or possibly the amp settings, sounding rather thin. And I didn't adjust the amp settings, so I think I might have to adjust it, because I just went with what I ran last time. Whatever I was using with the P90s. So these are noiseless, or sorry, these are single coils, so they're a bit more noisy than a P90. And just have to see how it goes. So the tone was pretty good for Blue Sky and Jessica. What makes Hideaway so different is the use of the lows. Hideaway has particularly the single note. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's rename this Hideaway, because I want to play it again. This does also make me want to introduce a rewind button. You know, I'm spending all my time trying to get this program better performance on Windows rather than relying on Mac, so I could have better videos to record. But you know, I'm thinking I spent so much time with that in mind that I think I should start focusing on features again, because this program is fully functional on the Mac. So why spend my time trying to get it on the Windows if it's already functional on the Mac? Just keep improving the Mac. I mean, yeah, the performance improvements can be done over time. There's some bottlenecks that I have because I'm erasing the whole screen and I'm redrawing the whole screen. And I have a bunch of vertices I'm rendering for the fret lines. And then I have a bunch of rectangles I'm splitting with the with the rectangles and the sustains, the notes, the bass notes, sustains, staccatos, writing text on the surface with bends, palm mutes, all that stuff. But just brainstorming. I gotta realize what I have in front of me is like, look at the notes display at the correct time. That's all I need right now. Sorry that you can't watch the videos with smooth movement like I'm seeing on the Mac. You're seeing the notes move like not smooth, and that irritates me that I can't have a video showing you what I see on the screen. But that's just the way it is, I guess. I'm not going to Unity. I'm not going to Unreal Engine. I'm not going to Godot. I tried C++ and has the same result as Pygame. I think it's my algorithm. But anyways, let's see what else there is. What's good for this tone in E standard? I don't have that many songs to choose from at the moment. If I don't recommend you ever use Ultimate Guitar website unless you like to get banned. So through that site. I'm sorry you write articles about Joe Yanamasa. Joe Yanamasa. Look, I hate Joe Yanamasa. Hate's a strong word, but Joe Yanamasa, if you're on XM Bluesville, that channel sounds better muted if you're on it. I'd rather not listen to anything than listen to Joe Yanamasa. Why is he the face of blues? That mediocre, Joe Mediocre, Joe Boo Mediocre. Call it lighthearted, call it what you will. He just sucks. And how are you gonna go from? Maybe it's just everyone's taste. No one as good as what the blues was. Not that I know anything about the blues, huh? Alright, what's next? Let me switch headphones. Yeah, I know there's an error. I get it. I know I gotta fix it. I know. Look, all I'm saying is if you're gonna look for somebody to idolize for blues, and you decide to choose Joe Jan Amasa, Joe Mediocre, man, it's better to listen to the past than to listen to today's junk. Joe Yanamasa, you are not the face of blues, man. You're not it. You don't got it. Stop pretending. It's okay. No one could fill the shoes of blues today as it was yesterday. Just leave it alone. I'm just tired of hearing Joe on Bluesvilles talking like he knows what he's saying. I just can't listen to the guy. Just can't stand Joe Yanamasa. I need a little sharper tone. been a while since I've done that one, but sloppy in a way, but at the same time, 10 years of playing the same song, it shows. I could hear it in my head, which is the first step. I already have the muscle memory of it. And yeah, it's fast. It's unique positions in the fret, whereas you're using the 18th fret, the 16th fret, and the G string, the third string, and the fourth string, the D string. Then you're also using the pinky or the third string, doing a lot of bends on. There's a lot of action in the first string and the second string from the 12th to 14th, 16th, 17th, 19th, 21, and it adds up. And it also slides down to the octave below to an extent, near an octave. Couple whatever down, perhaps not an octave. What am I talking about? But it slides from the second string, first string from the 19th to the unique positions between the 9th, the 7th, the 6th, and then it slides back up, and then does some unique fret arrangements, work, whatever, in the 8th fret, 9th, 11th, 13th, 14th, as well as the 12th, the 15th. Well, there's a lot. What can I say? There's something about songs that use the entire fretboard. Why would you stay in the same area of the fretboard whole song when you got the whole fretboard? It makes the song more special when you're doing different areas of the fretboard. There's something about these difficult songs that adds the interest value to playing them because you could play them a million times, which I've pretty much done at this point. Buckethead, Suomi, lead. Yeah, this tone's really good. I'm gonna have to save this preset. I just boosted the tone, the distortion, the tone. Presets, save, vintage, telly, Suomi, lead. This is good reverb. Excuse me. Good, good overdrive, good tone, good noise gate, good pickup, hot pickup on the bridge position, single coil. It's really great tone. Makes it easier to play when it sounds so good. And yeah, this is a baseball neck of a baseball bat of a neck, 50 style, really thick. It has spacing between the strings, between up and down position, vertically, horizontally, rows, columns, whatever the hell it is. There's more space between the strings, so that's what I'm missing a lot. I'm missing because there's more distance. I'm getting my plucks wrong with my right hand because distancing between the strings is further than I'm used to. This is the only guitar I have with the 50s neck, and it always takes some getting used to. But at the same time, the 50s neck just feels more sturdy. It feels like it could take a lot more. It feels like you could go to baseball and bat with it. It'll take anything you give it. In terms of bends, bends are easier to do because there's more space between the strings. You're not hitting the string above it as easily. The double stops are good to do. There's benefits, there's pros and cons of the 50s neck, and I definitely enjoy having unique guitars that are different from one another, so I could pick different flavors. Got a 50s neck here with single coils, got a P90 neck, got a Gibson. Granted, they're all the same. The split between the Fender length for the scale and the Gibson length. This is what, 25 inches, and the Gibson's 24? Something like that. And the Fender necks, I have more trouble doing the rock and roll rhythm. Or what I should say is, because Drop C also has similar things. Than in this portion where having to use the pinky to stretch, and it's harder to stretch when the frets are longer, the scale's longer than Gibson. That's why you lift the guitar upwards. That's why it helps. That's why they call it the classical position, right? It's easier to move your fingers across the distance when it's positioned upwards for some reason. Alright, well, since I'm still in E standard, I haven't gone to E flat. I don't feel like retuning. I just tuned the E standard and I don't feel like rechecking it every song. The Buckethead Suomi Swan lead is a song I've been playing 10 years, since around April, May 2013. And here we are, playing it. Same thing with Allman Brothers Band, Blue Sky, pretty much every other Allman Brothers band. In that Mountain Jam song, ooh, I haven't done Mountain Jam in a while. I also haven't done Whipping Post. Man, I'm gonna regret this, but let's see how much I miss with Blue Sky. Or Mountain Jam. I already did Blue Sky. Last one's next. Can't top the next one, okay? Grand finale. Okay, so that was Mountain Jam to the extreme. I see I slowed it down the tempos, but man, that song is the epiphany of rock and roll. Alright, it's not even including the alt lead. Wait until if I record the alt lead, mix the lead and the alt lead, and hear that harmonic, melodic, awesome combined solo between the two arrangements. Okay, next up, last one for this session, 382. E-stander. This is a great tone. My goodness, this noise suppressor is doing well with this. It's cutting the sustains, but that's okay. My program right now is having sustains between one note to the next, and it's accurate to the length of the note, but is accurate to how much I want to play the sustain? That's up to me. Sustain versus staccato, let ring versus palm mute. Palm mute to an extent in that you're muting by staccato. Staccatos, ghost notes, sustains. How do you control the length of the note? By it ringing after you pluck. That's also magic on top. It's not just plucking the strings, it's deciding how long for them to ring out. So with that said, let's go to the grand finale. Not Fake Problems, you know that band? That's the best band ever. But no, Cannon Rock. Alright, that's it. I mean, I could keep going, but we're already at 2 hours, right? Gotta stop somewhere. With that said, that was a pretty good tone. The measures towards the end, 200, 190s, whatever. You notice how the tempo is 33 BPM? That's the slowest I ever go. And perhaps I could modify that tempo. Like, let's look. So the funny thing is, I fixed one error and I introduced another, right? But that's how it goes. I'll fix this error later. So right when the song's over, it crashes because of a bug with textures, RGBA, RGB, screen, alpha, RGB versus Windows, Mac. Doesn't matter if it makes sense right now for you to hear that, but for me, I have to come back to that in program and fix it. So let's go back to where I just was, which was Jerry C. Canon Rock with no sweeps. Go to stats, look at the note log. I hit 76% accuracy. I'll take it. That is really good. For Canon Rock, holy moly. That is really good. Okay, okay, my score is 1288. My accuracy is 76.37. My longest streak is 48. My hit count is 889, and my miss count is 275. That is not bad. Alright. This has been the Fender American Vintage 2 Telecaster 1950 or whatever, the 50 styles neck, the baseball bat. It allowed me to have such a nice tone. Oh, I thought I was in the bridge pickup. Pretty sure I was in the bridge pickup because the bridge pickup is hotter than the front. The neck. Is it just me, or does the neck have a distance between? Maybe not quite the 24 fret distance like I'm getting mine custom. I ordered a custom guitar that has 22 frets, but the distance of 24 frets. I don't think you've ever seen a guitar like that. I don't want 24 frets, but I want the tone of it. Okay, well, this has been fun. This is a great guitar. Glad I picked it up. It's really different than my Ultra Telecaster with the noiseless pickups. They don't go as hot as this single pickup right here, and this is a fantastic tone. Really great quality of instrument. It's funny though, changing the tuning kind of feels sticky because of the material on it. Don't want my sweat on here. Spray it next time. This is a great guitar. I recommend it. I can't wait till I get my next guitar, guitar number 10. Okay, see you next session. This has been session 382. Sayonara.